Have you ever played a game that can literally just change your life? I know that's a bold claim, but the thing is, Celeste has actually been able to help a lot of its players overcome their depression and anxiety and change their lives. I suppose you are already wondering how a seemingly ordinary platformer can do something like this. Well, here's how. Attention, this video contains spoilers as well as the topic of depression and anxiety. Important. The analysis of these topics is based on example of a game developer. I am not an expert in this and there's a chance that I may be wrong. So if there's a mistake, please correct it in the comments. We play as Madeline, who has problems with depression and anxiety. Due to the fact that she simply doesn't know what to do with her life anymore, Madeline decides to climb Mount Celeste, even though she's not a climber at all and has never done it before. At the beginning of her journey, she meets Granny. They had a little talk. Granny gave us a lot of positive support, but also warned us that we might see things we ain't ready to see. I will recommend you to memorize this phrase. And that's how the first chapter begins. In it we are introduced to another character on our journey, Theo. From the dialogue we learn that he came from Seattle. He is a budding photographer and also runs his own Instapics page. Well, Theo seems pretty cool, I hope we'll see him again. After reaching the campfire, Madeline decides to take a break. She sat down next to it preparing for sleep with the phrase, "This might have been a mistake." The next chapter begins quite unexpectedly. Everything looks like a dream. After a couple of minutes of wandering around this place, Madeline finds some kind of magical mirror. Suddenly, it cracks. A chaotic version of the protagonist escapes from it, and after this place starts to play with new colors. Too much action, I understand. Okay, all kidding aside, who was that darker version of Madeline? Well, we're about to find out. Turns out that it's not just some doppelganger thingy, it's a part of Madeline, and through the dialogue we learn that this part doesn't like Madeline's new hobby very much, so she asks her to go back home. Madeline refused, to which her part threw a fit and started chasing her, but Maddie was able to get away. Later she encountered a street phone. Turns out she got a call from her ex. When Madeline told him that she was in danger, he said that she shouldn't make up some ridiculous story just to get his attention. Bro, what the hell. Later, she eventually started to tell him in detail what had happened, but she suddenly realized that it was just a dream. Her ex hadn't spoken to her in months, so why will he decide to call her now? Madeline is starting to regret her decision to climb this mountain, which her part agrees with, and happens this. You know what? Let's stop for a second. Actually, she has a name. It's Madeline, and if anyone hasn't realized yet, she's not some kind of evil version, but a representation of Madeline's depression and anxiety, which was given this body because of the magical powers of the mountain. Anyway, Madeline wakes up. After a while, she meets Theo again on her way. They took a cool selfie together, even enhanced it with a cool filter. It will be a shame not to post it on Instapics. Madeline also asked Theo why he was so interested in photography. He replied that his grandpa was really into it and became quite famous in the world of photography. Theo doesn't know if he can achieve the same as his grandfather, but he is glad to feel close to him this way. By the way, Madeline doesn't have a smartphone. I don't even know what to say. After the conversation, Madeline called her mother, and this is the end of chapter 2. The next chapter brings Madeline to the Celestial Resort, and there she meets Oshiro, the owner of this place. He's pretty excited to have someone new there, so he takes the opportunity to ask Maddie to stay at the resort. She told him that she was just passing through, but I think Oshiro doesn't give a shit. The resort is actually in a pretty bad situation, to be honest. A lot of stuff is thrown around, red and black stuff everywhere. The place is so messy that Madeline has to clean up all this for him. Later she came across Theo. Not without his body. He offered her to crawl through the vents with him because something fishy was going on here. But Madeline rejected his offer, saying that she wanted to help Oshiro, and walked on. I don't know if that was the right decision because he didn't seem grateful to Madeline at all for literally doing everything for him. After passing a couple of rooms, she meets Theo again, and he tells her right away like, well, this dude is really creepy, but Madeline doesn't want to just disappear. Eventually she gets to this cool luxury room and tries to find a way out of the resort via it. Oshiro, of course, keeps trying to convince her to stay, but suddenly he was interrupted by Madeline, who began to humiliate the entire resort and Oshiro himself. Those words kind of hurt him, I guess. After his attempt to literally kill Madeline, he finally came to his senses and admitted that the resort has to be closed for a while for major repairs. Generally, this chapter ends after that, but I would like to talk about a little more. In the resort we can also find Oshiro's diary, which describes the moment when the place was closing permanently. The entire staff decided to try to climb Celeste Mountain as a farewell, since most of them had never seen the summit. But unlike others, Oshiro decided to stay for a day because it was hard for him to leave this place and all the work he had put into it. But considering the fact that now we see him as a ghost... Actually, I would like to talk about Oshiro a little more. He's not just some creepy dude. If you take a look at him from a different angle, you can realize that he is a sort of representation of what can happen to a person when he or she decides to get stuck in the past and refuses to accept reality. And the fact that we meet Oshiro as a ghost represents his unresolved past that keeps him here. And this could be Madeline's potential future, if, like Oshiro, she doesn't do anything about her anxiety, and, as we saw in chapter 2, continues to avoid confronting it. And finally, at the end of this chapter, Oshiro seems to realize it. Well, that's at least a start towards self-healing. But even though Oshiro may have started to do so, you can't even imagine what Madeline will have to go through to get there. Granny! We told her about the resort incident and her reaction was the same as always. Later we meet Theo again. Nailed it. They decided to cross the big cap on their way on a gondola, even though it was quite old. Madeline and Theo have a conversation about Oshiro. She said that Theo was right after all and she shouldn't have tried to help him. Theo replies that he hates to say "I told you so", but the important thing is that Madeline didn't get hurt. That's what matters. Alright, that's sweet. Madeline starts to worry about the air being too thin and she can barely breathe up here, and that they're so high up that she can't even see the ground. Meanwhile, Theo feels pretty calm and offers to take a selfie. Suddenly, the gondola stops moving because of Madeline. Of course, we're without her. Our protagonists are obviously very frightened by this. Theo tries to start the gondola again, but he accidentally breaks off the lever. Because of all these incidents, Madeline begins to have a very serious panic attack. Theo immediately notices something bad happening to her and tries to calm her down. He asks her to close her eyes and imagine a feather in front of her, which she keeps floating with her breath. Madeline needs to breathe slowly to hold the feather. In and out. In and out. Luckily, this helps Madeline to calm down. Eventually, the gondola starts working again, and they made it safely to the other side of the mountain. Madeline feels very grateful for Theo's help. At the end, Theo shows her a selfie they got, and that's how this chapter ends. It was emotional. Actually, I think this chapter is very important for Madeline. In the past, when she had panic attacks, it was much harder for her to deal with it alone. She felt lost, she couldn't calm herself down, but now finally she has someone who can understand her and help. From this moment, Madeline will be much more willing to listen to others' advice, as will be seen later. Well, now we move on to the 5th chapter. From this point on, things get really interesting. Chapter 5 begins with Madeline and Theo approaching some ancient temple. Theo is in awe of the place, but Maddie, on the other hand, says that everything is so dark and it looks like a nightmare. To which Theo replies, "I'll just take a peek, snap a few photos," and of course he goes ahead to take them. Except, literally after Madeline passes a couple of rooms in this temple, she finds Theo's abandoned phone near the mirror. Well, things are not looking good. And so it turns out to be. Later we eventually find Theo, who is stuck in the mirror. But at least he took some pictures. Damn it. He told us something happened after he took a photo and he found himself lying on the floor in this strange mirror world. Suddenly Theo saw something approaching, so he ran away. Well, time to save Theo, holy moly! But how can we do it? Through the mirror, of course. Madeline finds herself in some dark space. Suddenly, as a player, we are given control of a monster, which eats her. And after, we wake up in a mirror version of this temple. Here we meet Madeline, and at first glance you might think that she did it. But the twist is, it's the work of Madeline herself. Yeah, everything we see from the moment we get into the mirror is Madeline's inner world. And the monsters we were given to play as a couple of seconds ago and which we encounter later are, wow, even more interesting. These monsters are able to make dash just like she does. Their colors are the same as Madeline's hair. We were even allowed to control this monster. But the only thing that makes them different from Maddie is that they are not controlled at all. And perhaps these monsters represent uncontrolled thoughts that can be harmful. And what's most shocking is that we can literally hear these thoughts in this chapter. If we play in the mirror Ost backwards, we can hear Madeline, who says the following words.
Sometimes I don't really know what's going on anymore. I don't know who I am. I just look in the mirror and don't know who I'm looking at or who's looking at me. I think a lot about where my train of thought is going. It's not always a good place, and that scares me. I don't like scaring myself at all.
To be honest, I don't even know what to say. If you also once had similar feelings, I hope things are much better now and you don't have such thoughts anymore. Actually, Madeline is not the only one who suffers from this strange place. When we find Theo stuck in a crystal, we can see a lot of eyes staring at him, and considering that Theo likes to keep social media, this could be a representation of being judged. And the last thing that shocked me the most when I found out, this temple also represents our fears. Let's return a little back. This real part of the temple is just a combo of frustrating moments for a player. Large dark rooms, narrow spaces, which, by the way, was never seen in the previous chapters and really freaked me out during the first playthrough. Oh god, what a chapter. Let's just end it already. Chapter 6, in my opinion, starts extremely perfectly. Well, that's why it's my favorite. After everything that happened in the Mirror Temple, Madeline and Theo decided to take a break by the campfire and talk about things. First of all, Madeline decided to tell Theo about Madeline and all the bad things that she had done to her throughout the climb. And Theo was really struck by it and said that if he had known what this mountain was capable of, he would never have gone up to this damn temple. By the way, Theo has a sister, Alex. She's studying to be a civil rights lawyer, and Madeline reminds him of her. And she also had depression, so Theo asked Madeline what it's like. She said, I quote, "It's like I'm at the bottom of the ocean. I can't see anything in any direction. It's claustrophobic, yet I feel exposed. I remember feeling normal, but now it feels just out of reach, no matter what I try. Then again, I was probably always messed up. It just took something hurtful to bring it out. I guess I thought that I could... I don't know. I'm just floating in this abyss, swimming in a random direction, hoping that I find something. That's really why I'm here. But I can't escape myself. I'm literally fighting with myself the entire way. Maybe it's all pointless." At the end of their conversation, Madeline asked Theo to take a selfie, and they went to bed, thanking each other for this wonderful talk. Actually, they talked much more than what I've shown you, but I'd advise you to get to that place and read the dialogue yourself. I mean, this game is too good to not at least try to play it. Anyway, Madeline and Theo went to bed. Suddenly, Madeline wakes up to beautiful northern lights. After everything she's been through, Madeline decides she's ready to talk to Madeline and put an end to her depression. In Madeline's opinion, Madeline is something she needs to leave behind. She's just a cruel, paranoid, controlling part, and so Madeline decides that she doesn't need Madeline anymore. And this thought was her biggest mistake. Madeline makes it clear that it's impossible just leave her behind. She cannot just blame everything on her, and she cannot be above her. Madeline tries to calm herself down with a feather, but this time nothing can help her. Madeline makes it clear that she will never be able to climb this mountain, and it's time to finally accept it. Madeline has fallen to the lowest point of the mountain, lower than she was at the very beginning. Madeline did not get it. Trying to get out of this place, she meets Granny. Madeline told her about everything that had happened. In response, Granny gave her very good advice: to talk to Madeline and find out why she's so scared. This is exactly what got Madeline thinking. She and her part met up again. Madeline now knows that Madeline is scared and offers to work together. But Madeline doesn't want to give up so easily. It's come to the point where a battle has begun between Madeline and Madeline. But you know what the most important thing about this all? Madeline doesn't run away anymore. Why did I say at the beginning of this chapter that the idea of just leave behind was her biggest mistake? Madeline is a part of Madeline, a part that cannot be left behind, a part that cannot be escaped of. Madeline isn't some evil voice in her head that constantly dragging Madeline down. Madeline is really just scared. She is afraid that Madeline might change her life in a negative way, so throughout the climb, Madeline behaves like that, saying she's not a climber and giving her panic attacks. She's afraid of change, so she did everything she could to get back to what they were used to. And from Madeline's point of view, what she was doing was wrong. Instead of trying to run away from her or leave her behind, she should have understood her part, why she behaved the way she did, and accept her. After all, Madeline is a part of Madeline, and avoiding her won't help, it will only make things worse. Of course, coming to terms with a part of yourself is not easy, which is why Madeline fights with Madeline. Accepting yourself is a long and difficult process, but no matter how long it takes, it's possible. And after going through this long journey, Madeline was able to do it. finally, they get along with each other. Maddie and Betty meets Granny, who is happy that these two are finally getting along. Madeline thanks Granny for the help, and later Theo, who went down to the bottom of the mountain to help. Betty tells Madeline that they still have some things to discuss together, which she agrees with. And most importantly, after coming all this way, now she definitely believes they can climb this mountain. Well, the time has come to repeat the whole climb, to go through all the places we have been before, but finally, not alone. Since Madeline and Madeline understood each other, you can see how much easier and faster climbing the mountain has become. And most importantly, Madeline began to change her mind. 500 meters, Forsaken City. Betty says she's waiting for something to go wrong. Madeline replies by saying that no matter what happens, she will be there. Madeline is starting to believe her. At 1000 meters, Old Site. Madeline supports Madeline? And a couple of chapters ago I thought it would never happen. Even Madeline is so shocked that she calls her Mrs. Positivity. 1500 meters, Celestial Resort. Maddie wonders how Osher is doing. To which Madeline replies that why the hell would she care about him if he treated her like sh*. Madeline says that she shouldn't have been so rude to him in the first place, but Betty says that she wanted to protect her from a bad person. At the end of this dialogue, they apologize to each other and decided to leave it in the past. 2000 meters, Golden Ridge. Madeline is a little in shock that she almost lost her life, and say that it looks like Betty was right all along, and the mountain is too dangerous. But Mrs. Positivity says she was wrong. They can climb this mountain and she believes in her. 2500 meters, Mirror Temple. Madeline apologizes for dragging Madeline down all the time. Madeline apologizes for trying to leave Madeline behind her entire life. They spend so much time and energy, but at least now they are finally talking about it. Madeline is glad that she decided to climb this mountain. And Madeline now understands why. Well, it's time to wrap it up. 3000 meters, the summit. They finally did it. Madeline feels upset that once Madeline leaves the mountain, she will lose this body and won't be able to talk to her as she used to. But Madeline encourages her, saying she will still be a part of Madeline forever. After talking a bit, they both decided to sit here a little longer and enjoy the view. After coming all this way, Madeline was able to climb not only a real mountain, but also a metaphorical one. And now, finally, she is mentally healthy. Actually, this is not the end of Madeline's story. There are 2 more chapters left, which has its own pile of content, but that's for another time. Have you seen how long the video is? In general, to be honest, I'm still in shock about how this game is so goddamn great. Developers have done a great job. While I was absorbing content on Celeste, I came across a huge number of comments where people sang this game. Celeste is a game about self-acceptance, and it shows mental health issues from a perspective that people who have not experienced it can understand how it feels. And those who struggle from, for example, anxiety, can see it from a different perspective and maybe even overcome it. Still, it's important to remember that Celeste or some YouTube video is not a guarantee of complete self-healing. If any of the viewers are currently suffering from anxiety or depression or something else, remember that you are not alone, no matter how difficult it may be. Tell your family and friends about it, and if they really care, they will support you, and a therapist will be able to find the right individual treatment. And most importantly, listen to the advice and support. No matter how hard or long it may take, you can do it, just like Madeline did. Mental health is very important, especially nowadays. This video was very difficult for me, so if you like it, please interact with it. You have no idea how much it helps. And also, yes, English is not my native language, so there may be some mistakes. Please correct me in the comments if you notice any. I appreciate it. And lastly, thanks for watching.